about code reviews, and I want to share with you some of my experiences in terms of how to do code reviews, how can we get better at it. But I'll first of all start by saying I'm talking now about 30 plus years ago. And I was a very young developer, barely graduating out of college, took a job, and I learned a number of things on my very first job. And back then, not really having any experience, I had a bit of a suspicion, are these really good things? Are these the good practices to follow? But I will tell you that over the time, as I practiced developing software, there are certain things that I know were not really good in my first job, but there were a lot of things that were actually really good, and those things continue to provide value. One of them is this idea of code review. And sure, there are things I've learned along the way, improved on, and that's what I want to share with you today. But I want to talk about code reviews. And this is something I think most of us in this room will relate very directly to because we all struggle with this. But the first law of programming says, lowering quality lengthens the development time. So if you really want to go slow, start writing very sloppy code. And the sloppier the code is, the slower we can move, it becomes extremely hard. But a lot of times we ask the question, why should I really care about quality? Don't I have enough things to do already? Am I not under pressure? Don't I have the boss that keeps asking me, are you done yet? Don't I have the customers who are expecting me to deliver this? So why should I really focus and spend any more time on it? Should I just not release it? There are a few reasons why we should really consider code quality. The first is we cannot be agile if our code sucks. As simple as that. If the code is of very poor quality, then we're going to resist change, not embrace change. It becomes really hard to keep up with the change when the code is of poor quality. Every time you touch it, it becomes incredibly hard to put it back together. So we're going to resist the change as much as we can. And so we cannot, if you really care about being agile, I talk about what is called the sustainable agility, and this becomes very important. But then the question I want to ask is, what is agile development? I would go to companies, and the first thing they want to tell me is, Venkat, we want you to know we are agile. And I always tell them, I'm so glad we got that out of the way. Now let's talk about what you actually do. So what is agile development? So I'm going to try to answer what is agile development. Let me think about it. How many of us are doing agile development? Yeah, that's almost all of us, right? Yeah, we do that, right? So I'll tell you, I think I figured this out. What is agile development? So what is agile? It is having stand-up meetings. That's it, right? How do I know you're doing agile? You're doing a stand-up meeting, right? The other day I was walking by the road. There were a few ducks forming a circle. Even they were agile, right? So that's it. You're doing stand-up, you're doing agile. You think that's the right answer? No. Okay, it's got to be something else. Let me think about it. Oh, you're doing Scrum. That definitely is agile, right? I guess not. It's got to be something else then. Let's think about it. It's velocity. I don't understand why we want to talk about velocity. Think about this for a minute. If you want me to go fast, how can I go fast? Ignore quality, do easy things, do things I am good at doing, not that the customer wants it. How's it going? Really fast. I need to be fast when it really matters. If I'm really fast in the beginning, what does that tell you? I'm going to be really slow when it becomes complex. If I'm going to do the hard things first and the important things first, I'm going to be a little slower doing it. Then I pick up speed. So don't ask for my speed at the beginning because I can't continue doing it. So it's not velocity. Oh my gosh, we really need to nail this agile development, right? I think I figured this out. It is having the Scrum Master. That's it. These are the two words I will never understand. I go to companies and they come to me and say, oh, Venkat, I'm a Scrum Master. I'm really sorry to hear that. Like, why? I'm sorry, this was never meant to be. Who wants a Scrum Master? This is the beautiful world we live in. Some people will find amazing ways to avoid real work. What do? I do Scrum Mastering. And what is it that I was in a financial company about 4 weeks ago. And I'm a very polite person. I don't get into conflict with people unnecessarily. I don't want to be provoked. So in a dinner meeting, I just want to eat. I've been speaking all day long. And one person said, I'm a Scrum Master. I'm like, here we go again. But I'm not going to say anything. I'm quiet. I don't want to be provoked. I just want to have my meal. And the person next to me said, so Venkat, what do you think? I'm like, yo, you didn't mean to do this. The next hour was a disaster. So that cannot be it. So what is it then? It's really feedback-driven development. That's what it really is. Agile development is feedback-driven development. I went to Grand Canyon for the first time in 1993. Oh, by the way, I just went to Grand Canyon last week to celebrate my 30th year with my wife visiting Grand Canyon. We went there 30 years ago. We said, hey, let's just make it happen. Thank you. And I was a very poor graduate student back then. I dragged her along, and we said, let's go take a look. But this trip was very different than the other trip. I started driving to Grand Canyon. As you know, Grand Canyon is not a mountain. It's a hole in the ground. And I'm driving for about 2 hours from Phoenix, Arizona. And I suddenly said, am I going in the right direction? And I'm like, I don't know. And I pulled the car on the side, and I looked 360 degrees, and guess what? 360 degrees of nothing. Flat land, right? And I'm like, am I going the right direction? I don't know. And I thought, maybe I can turn around, go back an hour, and ask somebody, was I going the right direction? And they say, yeah, you did. Now turn around and go back again. That's not going to help. But what if I keep going in the wrong direction? And I know what you're thinking. You're saying, hey, Venkat, didn't you have a map? Oh, yes, I did. And I took this map and put it on the hood. And I'm looking at it. And the map said, where is Grand Canyon? It said, where is Phoenix? It said, where is Sedona? There was one thing this map did not have. Anyone knows what that is? That blue circle. That blue circle was not on the map. It told me everything except where am I. This time it was much better, right? I start driving. Where are you going? I don't care. Google tells me turn left, turn right, turn left, I'm going. And it tells me how long it's there to go. The blue dot shows me where I am. That's feedback driven, isn't it? I don't care where your project has been. Where are you now? And how much time do you have to finish? And what are you going to do? That feedback driven development becomes essential to what we do. But what kind of feedback are we going to expect? There's not one feedback. There are many different types of feedback. One type of feedback we really care about is a feedback from active use of products. You probably read a book on agile development, and they tell you, do a demo at the end of your sprint. I say nonsense. I can do a beautiful dog and pony show. I can show you how beautiful this code is. But the minute you take your application that you're developing, give it to a user, and watch them kick and scream and complain, now you're getting really true feedback. When I was writing the book, Practice of an Agile Developer, my co-author Andy Hunt said, what do you do at the end of the sprint? Oh, demo the product. He's like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, that was a different question. I give it to my users and have them use it. He said, aha, that's what I'm looking for. And he drew a little circle and said, demo and exercise. Exercising a product is extremely important because now you get true feedback. When you give it to somebody and say, go use it, they're like, what do I enter here? Where do I click? Why do you ask for this information? What's that called? Feedback, right? You're getting true feedback when people start using applications. So active use of a product is a feedback. But then there's more other feedbacks, right? Automated tests are feedback. I love automated tests. Why? When I was writing the book, I said, automated tests are angels on my shoulder. They're angels on my shoulder. They're sitting right here. And I'm writing code. And I'm about to commit. And the angel whispers in my ears, Venkat, don't check it in. It sucks. I'm like, oh, thank you. Why? I would rather have my test tell me my code sucks than my coworker tell me my code sucks. Or even worse, my colleagues or customers tell me my code sucks. Tests make me look better than what I am. Who doesn't want it? Yes, thank you for that feedback. So absolutely, right? That's a feedback. Automated tests are a feedback mechanism, a feedback loop. But that's not it. We can look for more feedback. Oops, code reviews. Code reviews are another form of feedback. You want to find errors in code? Code reviews can help us to find those errors. But somebody who's reviewing it says, but what if this scenario happens? What if that happens? So code reviews are yet another type of feedback. If agile development is feedback-driven development, what are the types of feedback that can help us to develop better software? We focus on that one. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, excuse me, did you just say code review? You got to be kidding, right? Because you know what happens when we do code review? And a lot of companies do this. They say, we're going to do code review. So how are you going to do it? Thursday at 2 o'clock. Everyone in this room. And everybody sits around the table. What do? We project the code on the screen. Whose code is it? The victims. And this person like, oh, my code is being reviewed today, right? And everybody's like, let's talk about your code, right? Anybody who loves this? Do you wake up in the morning and say, Mom, today is my code review? You probably just pull the bed over. I want to call in sick, right? I don't want to go to work. Why? Because it's a code review day. Oh, my child, take it easy. You've got a running temperature already. We dread it. Nobody likes it. We feel beaten down. The developer doesn't understand why we do this. Because everybody talks about everybody else's code. If we talk down, we don't like it. In the meantime, the manager, you send an email, folks, 2 o'clock Thursday is a code review. The boss comes running to your desk. Did you just send an email saying there's a code review? You said, yes, boss. And they were like, heck, no way. It's like, why? Because the last time we had a code review, there was a fight. We called in cops, and 2 people quit. No more code review for you, right? This happens, isn't it? So maybe they order extra security on the code review day, right? It becomes a riot. We don't like it. And the entire team is like, we're out of here. We don't want to be part of it. So nobody likes code review. So are you out of your mind to suggest it? It's okay. So code reviews, on the other hand, are the next best to pair rotation. Not just pair programming, but pair rotation. I pair with him, and then tomorrow I pair with her, and then I pair with him the next day. We rotate pairing. That's an awesome way to have a dynamic review. If you don't want to do it or cannot do it, or code reviews are next best thing to it, that can be very helpful. But it took me a while to figure this out, and I'll be honest about it. I like code review for one good reason. I realized over time that I'm absolutely terrible in writing code. But I'm extremely good in finding fault with other people's code. That is just me. And so I realized, rather than trying to pretend I can write good code, I write code and give it to her. While she is kicking and screaming, I get to scream about his code. The benefit, collectively we can be writing better code. So I don't have to be somebody who writes great code for me to review the code. Because after all, we're all really good at finding fault with other people, right? What about you? I'm perfect. But that person needs a lot of improvement. So leverage that, right? So write the code, give it to somebody, let them find ways to improve your code. You can help them in the meantime. But code reviews are both technical and sociological. It's not just technical. Yes, it is technical, but it's sociological as well. You're not reviewing code, period. You're reviewing the work that somebody did. There is a person at the other end of the code. The minute we forget it, everything is lost. You're not going to have a code review. We cannot forget that. So we need to think about not just the technical part, but the social part. What are the benefits of doing this? There are a number of benefits to doing this. First, writer of the code. What's the benefit for the people who are writing the code? You got another pair of eyes looking at the code you have written. They think about the edge cases, think about the conditions, think about things that need to be considered. You write, I will tell you the only way to make sure you're writing readable code is to have somebody read it. If anyone says, I write code that's readable, I say with all respect, who has read it? Nobody. Well, no, I cannot agree that your code is readable because nobody has read it. But the minute somebody reads a piece of code, it becomes readable. Either it's been really good and they acknowledge it, or they have comments and then you go back and improve it, it becomes readable. But more important, when the code is readable, you're reducing the cost of development. You're making it more maintainable. If nobody reads a piece of code, you increase the risk at that point. But here's a beautiful thing. It's a very humbling experience because I write code and I give it to her and say, review this. And she says, but Venkat, why can't we solve this problem using this data structure and this function? Oh my goodness, I did not even know it exists. Thanks. I just learned something. Tell me, who in this room doesn't want to become smarter? Code review helped me to learn. It raises the bar. I'm more intelligent, smarter working with you because I learned something from you. What about the reviewer? What's good for them? They help others in the team learn. Hey, I learned from her, she helped me learn. That's great. Learn things you did not even know. This is another benefit. I'll tell you, I'm reviewing somebody's code, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't know you could do this. And the person has written, I remember, I'll tell you, I went to a programmer and said, hey, I was reviewing your code. Like, I never knew this concept exists in Python. Thanks. Now I learned a new technique I can go use. Somebody said, code review makes you a hero or makes you smarter. What a way to think about it, right? It makes you a hero or makes you smarter. It makes you a hero because you showed somebody something they didn't know. It makes you smarter because you learned something from them that you did not know. And I'm selfish. I'm thirsty to learn things from others anywhere. And now I'm like, whoa, I got another pair of technique as a bonus I got by reviewing the code. And you can also get familiar with the application overall. There are no hidden corners. If somebody is talking to you, how does that work? You're like, I can talk about it intelligently because I know how that part works because I reviewed that code. And that makes you a better designer. You're not designing with the unknown. You're designing with what is reasonably familiar. That's another benefit we get. But what about the team? We talked with the writer, talked with the reader, a reviewer. What about the team? You can refactor the code continuously to reduce the cost. When you're reviewing the code, you come up with ideas. Hey, can we simplify this? Can we rework this data structure? That's going to lower the cost for the entire team. We practice collective ownership. What is collective ownership? Anyone who is capable of modifying the code can modify it. In some products, there is this concept called truck factor. You probably are aware of truck factor. Truck factor is the number of people on your team who should be run over by a truck for your project to fail. Anyone knows what that number is in a lot of teams? 1. Scary, right? This one person, this actually happened in a team. I wish they had been run over by a truck, honestly. But they won a lotto. And they said, I don't need to work anymore. And they quit. And the product went down. Because the code that the person wrote, nobody could understand it, including the person who wrote it. Truck factor of 1. I won't mention the name of the country or the company because they're almost synonym. But I was in their company, and I was a consultant, and there were 2 programmers sitting kind of like here, right, next to each other. The manager was sitting on the opposite side. And the manager is like, I want one or both of you to come work on my project. They're like, nope. And he's like pleading, I really need help. At least one of you. Nope. And I'm sitting there just watching them back and forth. At some point I said, excuse me, I need to understand this. And I went down and said, well, what do you do? And one person said very proudly, we both work on the same product. He was so happy to say this. And they were literally sitting next to each other in the chair. We both work on the same product. And I work on one part of the code, and he works on the other. We never touch each other's code. And he was very proud. I said, you never touch his code. I don't even see it. And I said, what about you? I don't even see it. I said, I'm sorry, with all respect. Let's say you step out tomorrow and a truck hits you and you die. What happens? He dies with me. I'm like, gosh, this is what you want in a team when you are the only person in the world who can manage this code and nobody else can. That's not job security. Because one day you don't no longer want to do the job. Guess what's going to happen? They hold you hostage, right? You remember that developer that you never saw? But the code keeps being committed? Where do you think this developer is? Firing is easier, right? This is different. It reduces a single point of failure in the code and reduces the truck factor as well, like I said. But when, who, what, how do we do this? First, never review code that's not been compiled. If somebody gives you a code and says, can you review this? There's syntax error in here. Go away. I'm not going to review this code. Why not? Because you want to give meaningful feedback. Not feedback like, does this code compile? Does the code pass all the tests? That's the first thing I look at. If your code doesn't pass tests, sorry, no review yet. Make the test to pass. And you want to pass through code quality tools, your linters. Run it through ESLint, run it through whatever other tools, PMD. Why? If I write something and throw it across to you and say, review it please, like a essay, and you're going to circle all the spelling mistakes and all the grammar errors, that was not a good use of your time. And the feedback I got was not that helpful. But I go through a grammar checker, a spell checker, I review it a few times, I read it a few times, and then I think about it, and I look at it one more time, then I give it to you. And now you're saying, hey, would you like to cover this event that happened that influenced this particular idea? And I'm like, whoa, you're now talking concept, not the format or the errors that are typographical, right? Same thing with code. If you give a better quality code, you get a better quality feedback. You give a poor quality code, you get a poor quality feedback. Not because the reviewer is not capable, but because the code is in such a place, it's overwhelming. I cannot really give you anything when the code is so poorly written. But I don't review code. I review test first. That's where I start. If you come to me and say, can you review this code? Sure. And I will gravitate to the test directory first. And I will start reviewing the test. Then I review the code, not first. And I work with some amazing people. They write really good code and really good test. And my feedback to them is, excuse me, have you considered this edge case? Do we need to think of a test for it? Oh my goodness, thank you for pointing that out. I did not realize that, thanks. So I start with the test. Is the test expressive? Is the test telling me? A test shows me the growth of the design. I want to see the test as a story. Here's how you started designing this code. I'm walking through your memory lane when I'm reading a test. I care about test before I care about code for the review. Test first, code review, right? That's what I do. So are they short? Are the tests short enough? I had a client, I'm not even exaggerating honestly. I did a TDD training for them. 6 months later, I got an email. Venkat, we want you to come and do an advanced TDD training. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is advanced about TDD? And they said, because it's not working. I said, well, if it's not working, why would you need an advanced training? And they said, maybe you can help us to maybe write better tests. I said, okay, fair enough. But on one condition, NDA signed. You will send me your test cases, I will review them. And when I come back, the advanced training will be based on the test you have written. And they said, seems like a reasonable plan, here you go. And they sent me the code. And I'm not exaggerating. The very first unit test I opened up was 750 lines long. I said, whoa, what's that? They said, unit test. I said, why? And they said, because we use JUnit. That cannot be a unit test. I don't even know what that is. But clearly, they were writing the test and the adults were not around. They're like, excuse me, what are you doing? Can we stop and think? No, we're going. So, are the tests easy to understand? Are the tests short? Does it have a structure? I usually use what's called a AAA structure. Arrange, act, assert. I wanted to read a story for me. Here's what I arranged. Here's what I'm asserting. Performing the action, I'm asserting. Do tests tell the story of the design as it has evolved? Or are they missing tests? I review tests first. When should we review? When should I review the code? Now, let's think about this for a minute. If I come to you and say, could you please review this code? And you tell me, sure, let's delete the whole thing and start over. I'm going to say you're out of your mind, aren't you? Then why are you asking for a feedback? So, question to ask, when should we ask for a review? First, don't tie feature releases to code review. A lot of companies do this. This makes no sense to me. I go to them and say, hey, we want to do code review. Good. There's a saying, right? Pathway to hell is created on good intentions. They said, we want to review code. So what did they do? They said, the only way to make sure code review happens is you cannot push to the main branch this feature until code is reviewed. Heard that before? That's the theory. Let's talk about the reality. People are pushing code. Hey, Joseph, can you please review the code? Don't have time for it right now. Sarah, no time for you right now. Siva, don't even think about it. I got other things to do. The boss comes around. Why is this feature not released? Oh, it's waiting for code review. Review it now. It looks good. Has that happened? Is that code review? I don't understand. Yeah. Makes no sense. And I see this happen all the time. By the way, that's called TDD, right? Stands for threat-driven development. It's like, you will do this. Like, oh, okay, no bonus otherwise for you. That doesn't work. Code reviews are effective when the developers ask for it. I go to the people that I respect and I say, please, please. I'm in tears when I say this because it's extremely humbling experience, honestly. Because when they review my code, they show me things that can be so much better. And I go to them again and say, could you please review my code again? Because the last time you did, I learned so much from that experience. I am better today because of your review. If you don't feel that, That's not a code review. That's when you know it works. And that's what I do. I go to people that I respect and I say, please review this for me. Because the last time you did, I came out looking good because of your help. That has to happen. That's when the value is provided, not under threat. You will not release the feature if it's not reviewed. No, I want to review this. Show me a little code. Get a lot of feedback. Show me a lot of code. Got only a little feedback. Review incrementally. If I say, I'm working on this feature, I wrote this little few things here, can you review it? Boom. Here are so many things you can make better. Oh, thank you. I give you that much code. Review it, please. Looks good. Nobody has time to go through all of the detail. It's overwhelming, right? It's even worse. I always tell this. Ask for it early and frequently if you want my feedback. Ask at the end if you want my blessing. I am done with this code. That's what they come and tell me, right? But I want you to review it. Like, why? You're done with it. Because if I tell you, let me tell you how this can be, you're like, just please, I'm done. I just need to get this stupid thing over because the boss wants this. That's called code blessing. Right? Not code review. So rename it. Hey, did you get the code blessing? If you want the code review, start early and ask frequently. Early on, hey, can you take a look at it? Hey, I'm looking at this. I don't think we want to design it this way. We want to really use this particular structure, talk to the other service. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks. I'm going to rework my design. Is it possible? Yeah, I didn't go too far. Or I've gone this far, and the minute you say, I got an idea, it's like, no, I don't have time for it. So be very critical about asking that. Are you asking for code review or asking for code blessing? Be continuous, not episodic. Make it a practice. Hey, if I write code, you need to review. You write code, I need to review. So there's no concept I don't have time. You don't have time for what? What are you running so fast away from? There's no reason. Slow down. Review in stages, not in full features. So don't wait to complete something and say, review this. Start in stages. I've taken a step. I want to know now if I should continue or I should change direction. I want to start driving to Mumbai. I don't want to ask you at the end of 7 hours, 8 hours, am I in the right direction? Because it says Kanyakumari over here. It's like, oh gosh, you should have been in the opposite direction, right? You might as well stay there and have a good time. It's a nice place. I've been there once. It's amazing. So review in stages, not in features. But how do we review code? How do we approach this? How can we get better at it? Go beyond coding styles. Where do we put the curly braces? I put it somewhere. I don't care where you put it, as long as you put it where I like it. Should we follow tabs or spaces? Remember that Gulliver Travels? The Lilliputians got together and they were fighting. If you had written the book today, it would be tabs and spaces, not what side of egg to break, right? Because teams get into fighting with this, tabs versus spaces. Pick one, be consistent, and it doesn't matter at that point. Get that out of the way first, whatever the syntax you decide. Are the variable names good? How many times have you seen this? X-arrow. Hey, why is it X? Next code review, it's Y. Why is it Y? Maybe a Z. Random, absolutely random names, right? Where do these names come from? Completely meaningless names. And that's something you can ask. Excuse me, what does this mean? I'm not asking for a long name. Would you do this, honestly? Would you do this? Would you name your child P? Child, what's your name? P? Is that your initial? No, it's my full name. There's only one proof from there, right? Both the parents are programmers. Because if one parent was a programmer, the other one's like, are you kidding me? It's like, no. Or the method name's descriptive, but short. I don't want a long method name. By the time you read it, you forget it, what it was saying, right? One rule I follow, no method name should be longer than my name. There's a reason why parents gave me such a long name, right? So at least there's a barrier to it, right? Is the name shorter? That's good. So is the code too long? Does it have a proper level of abstraction, details in it? Is it easy to understand? When you read the code, are you able to understand the code very quickly? If I'm staring at it, trying to figure it out, time to refactor it. Look for the code is cohesive and has low coupling. Can we avoid duplication? I will not tell you how many times I do this. Literally, seriously, as I'm reviewing code, my comment says //Yagni. And the programmer is like, oh, and they delete the code. Best refactoring ever, right? You come over and delete the code. Yagni, you're not going to need it. Why'd you write it? What if? We don't know. Don't write that code. Yagni. Yagni is a very common feedback I provide. Not going to need it. Don't write it. The code you did not write has the fewest errors in it. Reduce it. Right? That is something we want to do as much as we can. But I was speaking in Switzerland a few months ago, and this was yet another humbling experience. I was doing live coding in my session, as I do in a lot of sessions. I was writing some code, and one of the person in the audience said, there's a bug. And I said, oh, and I'm looking at the code. And somebody else said, there's a bug. I'm like, okay, let me find out. And then someone said, there's a bug. I said, fine, what line number? And they said something like 33. I'm like, I don't understand. What's wrong with line 33? And they said, look behind. And I did. Literally. There was a bug on the wall. What do you do when you find a bug? So years ago, when I find a bug, not that kind of bug. Years ago, when I found a bug, I would write a description. Hey, I'm looking at this code here. If you pass this kind of data, it produces this output at that, blah, 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 blah. I used to write that notes, right? Then I said, wait, why am I doing this? And this was about maybe 9, 10 years ago. And I said, no, I'm not going to write this notes. I found a bug, and I immediately wrote a test. And the very first time this happened was like a aha experience for me. I wrote a test, and the test failed because of the bug. And I quietly committed the code. Didn't say a word. And the CI just went up in flames. And the developer who wrote the code says, oh, the CI is broken. Guess what happened? Uh-oh. Venkat changed the test. And about 2 hours goes by. The developer came to me and said, hey, I see what you did there. I said, what did I do? You found a bug in my code, didn't you? And I said, uh-huh. And you wrote a test for it, didn't you? I said, I did. And I said, I guess you're trying to teach me something here. So I don't know if you know it. There were actually 3 bugs in the code, not 1. So I wrote 3 more tests and then fixed them. I guess that's okay, right? I'm like, my job here is done. Because when you find a bug, don't fix it. Write a test for it. Once you write a test for a bug, then fix it. What's the benefit? Somebody comes along, modifies the code 3 months from now, and the test is like, I'm here still, watching you. So don't fix a bug, write a test, then fix a bug. Fast forward. I found a bug in the code. I'm like, aha, here's a bug, programmer. I'm going to write a test. I write a test. And the test passes. I'm like, change the test some more. And the code is like, keep trying. I'm like, the code has a bug, but the test doesn't fail. Why? Then I clear my eyes and quietly start reading the code again. I'm like, oh, the code doesn't have a bug. It was so convoluted, I misunderstood the code. So my feedback now was, can we please refactor this code? Because I thought the code was doing this, but it looks like it's doing actually this. And sometimes that happens, right? The code doesn't have clarity, it's confusing. And you want that to be written. That's another benefit. So when you find a bug, write a test. Be constructive. Very, very constructive. I like to use the word we oftentimes. When I look at a code, I want to say, hey, we are solving this problem. You think we can split this method into smaller methods? Can we do it? Not you. Not you. It's not about you. It's about us. Don't say what is terrible in the code. You're looking at a piece of code. Don't write a review saying, this code smells worse than the garbage truck. It doesn't help the reader. Don't be critical. Don't tell what is wrong in the code. Tell what can be better. My goodness, this code is too long. And the person is like, okay, but what do I do about it? Honestly, there are times I get feedback, and the person says, this is wrong. Yeah, but give me some options. What do I do about it? I don't know. Hey, do you think we can break this into smaller methods, each focusing on this? They may use that, or they may come with a better solution. That's fine. So be constructive. Instead of saying instead of saying what is terrible, say what can be better, how can it be better, and why this is a good idea. I know that takes time, right? But that's the way we improve what is around us. And sometimes, if you feel like this is a little too slow, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Just invite the person to pair with you while you review their code. You can just walk through it speaking, rather than having to type all of this down. And that may even result in a better interaction and better questions as well. But make it safe to be honest. Make it very safe to be honest. Right? So let's say I'm reviewing his code. And when I finish reviewing his code, I am like, oh my gosh, the type of things he has written, right? So then I see you by the water cooler. And you're like, hey, how's it going? Hey, you know what? I just reviewed Shyam's code. I don't know who hired Shyam. That's the worst code I've ever seen. Shyam cannot type even 2 lines of code which makes any sense. What are you thinking? I'll tell you what you're thinking. You're not thinking that Shyam is terrible. You're thinking, wait. If Venkat reviews Shyam's code, Venkat is going to badmouth Shyam. If he reviews my code, who is he going to talk about that? I just eroded your trust because I'm good at speaking ill of others. What does that tell you? I am an equal opportunity ill speaker. I'll talk about you to somebody else, right? And now you're like, whoa, I don't want you to review my code. I'll escape from it. I don't even want to talk to you about stuff I do at work because you're going to go, it's got to be safe to be honest. I reviewed your code, and you know what? There are things I do in my code that you're going to find as well. We are here to learn from each other. This is not a crime. This is not a punishment. We are in this journey together. I know a few things better than you, and you know a lot of things better than I do. But we're here to learn from each other. And I'm going to tell you can improve this code. You can tell how I can improve my code. That's great. Let's keep moving. Hey, you reviewed Shyam's code. How did it go? Oh, he's working on some feedbacks. I think he's doing great. But that's what we are here for. Now we made it safe to be honest. You're not going to be told about to others. And think about that, right? Gossips don't make us better. Gossips make us poor. Because that's not a good reflection of our mind. But instead we say, hey, I make mistakes, you make mistakes, we learn from each other. I was asked to come and work in a team. People were very defensive. Like, oh, we don't want to go talk to Venkat. What if it goes tell boss? I'm like, hey, I don't know a lot of stuff. but I know a little bit. My job is to help you. When you ask me questions, I'm here to answer, not to go tattletale. Sometimes I'll have managers come and say, so you have been interacting with the team. Uh-huh. What do you think of? Please, no. That's a trust. I am there shoulder to shoulder talking to them because they trust me. I don't have it's like the client attorney privilege, not as glamorous, right? But the point is, they trust in me. And if I start tattletaling, that trust erodes. They're not going to be honest anymore. How do you make them honest with me? Be honest to them. That's the key. That's extremely important to do. Hope that was useful. Thank you.